BARK Radio.
What's good, everybody? It's Robo from All Bark back with another video. And today I'm bringing my NFL Week 10 picks. I'm picking every game both straight up and against the spread, keeping track of my weekly and yearly results. It's been a good year so far for the picks, but before I get into my Week 10 ones, let's go ahead and recap Week 9's results on the channel. Last week was another rougher one for my picks, going 6-7 both straight up and against the spread. We almost had a big flip of the week with the Bengals, Texans, Packers, and Raiders, but what an unbelievable finish it was for the Bears. And then it was just a tough luck with CJ Stroud going out and the Texans losing a very winnable game by 3. And then the Packers getting upset by a field goal and the Raiders losing in overtime. We're still well in the positive, but we need a green week to get back on track. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with Sunday's matchups. The first game we'll go over is the Berlin game, the Falcons and the Colts facing off from Germany. The Colts come off a tough road loss to the Steelers where Daniel Jones had his worst game of the season and things were just not going their way at all early on to dig a hole they could not climb out of. In hindsight, after the Packers lost, that Steelers team was probably really motivated, but that should also mean this Colts team is too this week. The Falcons are coming off a crushing 1-point road loss to the Patriots where they nearly came back to complete the upset, but missed the extra point to tie it late. Now sitting at 3-5, this team needs every win they can get, and playing overseas can make things really ugly and tough to bet on. But I still feel like this Colts team has shown enough this season outside of one game to think they'll bounce back. I don't really love the matchup for Penix against this Colts defense, who is now also adding Sauce Gardner into the mix. So I'm going to take the Colts here to win and cover, 27-20. The Jets host the Browns this week after a mini fire sale at the deadline where they moved both Sauce Gardner and Quinton Williams for picks. And although they didn't move any of their offensive talents, the big question here is still how do they score on this Browns defense? It's been dominant all year, and this Jets offense is just terrible, with basically no threat in the passing game with Justin Fields and some unhappy campers throughout that unit. I'd be surprised if they score much more than 10 to 13 points in this game, honestly. And after selling off 2 of their best defensive players, life gets a bit easier for an equally struggling Browns offense going on the road here. I think taking Cleveland here with more to play for and in a better spot as a team is the right move. So I'm going to ride with them this week, 17-13. Next is another heavy defensive battle between two bad offenses who are getting even worse this week as CJ Stroud is out for Houston and Brian Thomas Jr. is out for the Jags. BTJ hasn't been himself, but he still adds a lot of gravity to that receiver room and is supposed to be a big part of that offense. And up against a defense as strong as the Texans, which is still top in the league, how do they score many points here on the road? I don't expect much out of Davis Mills replacing CJ, but at least he got some good run last week and is an experienced quarterback in the NFL. I still think I lean on this offense having a better day than Jacksonville just because of how wide that defensive advantage is for Houston, especially if it's playing at home on top of it. This would be a big win in division for the Texans as well to avoid the loss without CJ for this one. So I think they come out hungry and ready to get it done defensively. So give me Houston close, 20-17. Over to the AFC East, we've got the Bills rematching the Dolphins in Miami this time. Game 1 this season was a pretty slow game that the Dolphins fought well in, but the Bills coasted to a win with some guys out of the lineup as well. And to be frank, the Bills are absolutely rolling right now, and while the Dolphins had a big day against Atlanta, they went right back to bad with an ugly loss to the Ravens on Thursday Night Football last week. That does mean that they're rested now, and they know the Bills pretty well, but I just don't see a reason to take them in this spot considering the Bills are flaming hot right now and the spread is under double digits. An improved Bills defense should be able to thrive in this spot on the road, and Josh Allen is just unfair. I'll ride with him once again in a divisional spot, 31-14 Bills. Now maybe to the best matchup of the 1 p.m. slate. The Patriots are on the road at the Bucs this week. Both teams are probably seen as a bit fraudulent by most, but to me, I really think both of these teams have earned these records. The Bucs have won a ton of close games though, and the Patriots had an easy schedule. But if I had to compare the two, I think the Bucs are a bit more fraud-worthy. They still got so many guys out on offense, and although the schedule questions are real for New England, they've dominated it. You can't really say the same for the Bucs this season. They just recently got manhandled by the Lions, and while the Patriots are not as good as Detroit, this offense is rolling with Drake May, and they've got real playmakers on defense like Christian Gonzalez and Harold Landry, who just made a huge impact on that end to me, and I think it'll be another game the Patriots come out with a win. I'm going to take them close, 24-21. Chicago Bears look more and more like the Washington Commanders of 2025. A team that just finds a way to win games with close scores while also having a relatively easy schedule to help lift them into the playoffs. And this week, they'll get another favorable matchup at home against the New York Giants. After losing both Neighbors and Scatterboo for the season, I thought this Giants offense would just die off with no real playmakers around Dart. But Jackson Dart has earned my respect a bit. He went out there and competed last week and put up 24 points on the 49ers. That's not an elite defense by any means, but considering what they've lost and how many people were out on them for the rest of the year, it was an impressive performance a bit to me, and I think that momentum could continue this week against a very bad Bears defense. It's the offense that's been winning these close games this year, and that just feels like too many points to trust this defense to be able to help cover. I think Chicago picks up yet another win this week, but the close game theme continues with them. I'll go 26-23 Bears. Next in the 1 o'clock window is the Ravens at the Vikings. JJ McCarthy helped lead the Vikings to a massive road win over the Lions last week in his return, a result I did not see coming whatsoever. I thought the Lions looked ridiculously flat in that game. They couldn't block anything. They were super conservative play calling wise, and the defense was giving up third downs left and right. And JJ just delivered when it mattered. This Vikings team really is as up and down as it gets, but I still am not fully sold I can fully trust JJ McCarthy in this league yet. I'd love to see more of that out of him, but this matchup with the Ravens is really tough again. They're getting red hot now with Lamar back at quarterback and cannot afford many losses the rest of the way. After a win that big last week with the Vikings, I can see this team coming out a bit more flat, and this isn't a division rival either. So I'm going to pick the Ravens by a touchdown, 27-20. The Panthers come home to North Carolina this week after their massive road upset over the Green Bay Packers. What an impressive showing from this defense especially, but again, Rico Dowdle in the backfield with another monster game, and Bryce Young making a couple key throws throughout that game as well. This Panthers team finally looks to be turning the corner in their rebuild. The question is this week, how bad does the hangover hit them? I still think this team lacks talent overall and isn't significantly better than these teams at the bottom of the league. And coming off of a win that big, it can get to your head a bit and affect the way you come out the next week. The Saints are bad and have burned me a couple times expecting them to cover big numbers, but this might just be their best shot at a win for a while. So I think they come out a bit stronger on both ends of the ball this week, but lose again as the Panthers should take this one. I'll go 21-17. Over to the 4 o'clock Eastern, we'll start with the Cardinals at the Seahawks. The Cardinals made some headlines this week as after they upset the Cowboys Monday night, they announced they were putting Kyler Murray on IR with his foot injury and starting Jacoby Brissett for the foreseeable future. They've been playing better offensively lately, but I'm not sure how much of a ceiling raiser Brissett truly is. And this week, they're on the road at one of the league's hottest teams in the Seattle Seahawks. Sam Darnold continues to dominate, and Jackson Smith and Jigba put up over 100 yards and a half of football last week. This Cardinals defense looked better last week with the addition of Walter Nolan finally, but it's a little banged up again with all of Will Johnson, Max Melton, and Mack Wilson out already. Will Johnson made a huge impact in that game, and I think that's a pretty big loss despite for him being a rookie. And this matchup, it's just going to make it even harder to stop the Seattle offense regardless. I think Arizona does score some points here, but Seattle runs away with this one eventually, 30-20. The 49ers and Rams face off this week for the second time this season. The first time was in LA, and the Niners pulled off a huge Thursday night upset with Mac Jones and company getting it done. And while this time the game's in San Francisco, the Rams offense is on absolute fire, and Puka's back as well, just adding the biggest piece right back into the lineup for Stafford, who's had an incredible season this year. Not to mention all the injuries continuing to stack up for San Francisco now, as even Mikael Williams is out for the year. It's just a different team this time around for San Fran, and the Rams absolutely should be hungry to get their revenge and split the series. I just don't see much of a path for consistent stops out of the 49er defense. And on the other end, Christian McCaffrey's going to have to be an absolutely electric player to give this offense enough to keep up with the Rams, in my opinion. The LA defense is a great one to me, and I think they're going to be eager to get after Mac in this spot. So give me the Rams, 28-17. The Lions are on the road this Sunday at the Washington Commanders, looking to bounce back from the home loss of the Vikings last time out, and they'll be facing a Commanders team that might already be on their deathbed, with already 6 losses on the season and now missing Jaden Daniels for his foreseeable future after that nasty late game injury. And to add insult to injury, they'll again be without Terry McLaurin this week, so Marcus Mariota is going to have to face a pissed off Lions team with pretty minimal help around him. If you remember from a few weeks ago, I mentioned the Lions' performance in games after a loss. They're now 12-0 dating back to 2023 immediately following a loss, and have covered the spread in a large majority of those games. Given the fact that this team is probably going to come out for blood, and the Commanders have really nothing to play for and just suffered a devastating injury to their team, I've got to roll with the Lions to wake up again this week, 31-16. Sunday night's matchup is a good one between the Steelers and the Chargers from LA. The Steelers got a huge win last week over a surging Colts team with an incredibly impressive defensive performance, taking the ball away from Daniel Jones all game long. And now they'll have a chance to go do it again on the road, as the Chargers are going to be without Joe Alt for the rest of the season. Honestly, I do not trust this Chargers team at all without Joe Alt's presence yet. Their numbers with and without him this season have been vastly different, and although some hangover from last week could be there with the Steelers, LA isn't necessarily the toughest place to play, and I've got to think they get a ridiculous amount of pressure on Justin Herbert, which will absolutely dictate this game. I think Pittsburgh offense will score a few times in this game. It just depends on if the defense can control this game the way pretty much every other defense has when the Chargers didn't have Joe Alt. And I'm going to trust that they do and go 24-21 Steelers in an upset. Lastly, Monday night should be an absolute banger between the Eagles and the Packers in Green Bay. The Packers will be looking to get back on track after a disastrous offensive performance last week at home against the Panthers. And honestly, this is one of the worst matchups to have after a loss like that. The Eagles don't seem as unbeatable as last season, but they continue to win games and look good on both sides of the ball and continue to improve that roster as they made a big deal for Jalen Phillips at the deadline. This team is starting to feel a little bit inevitable again in the NFC, and the Packers offense has some serious issues as I've mentioned in the past. There's just really no consistency, and the offensive line has not protected Jordan Love at all this season. I think that Eagles defense eats at this opportunity against this offensive line to pick up a massive road win this week. It'll be a tough game, no doubt, as the Packers defense is great as well, but I think the Eagles are just a better team here, and I trust them in this spot, 27-23. That's it for my Week 10 picks. Let me know your thoughts on any of these games down in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
BARK Radio.